like, oh, what is that rad thing? What is this thing people are doing? Oh, can I get in on this? How do I get in on this? How do I get in on this? I am a chaos gremlin in real life, so I will be the last person that's policing anybody. Hi, welcome to Stitches and Starlight. My name is Tashiana, but you can call me Tashi because that's what my friends do, and we're friends now. I'm coming to you from my home in Brooklyn, New York, where I live with my husband Joshua and our two hell kittens, Minerva and Astoria. I call them that affectionately because I love them to pieces, but they're also terrors, and sometimes I wonder why I share my life with them. They might occasionally, there's a cat right there, they might occasionally make appearances on the podcast. We will see. But yes, welcome to my corner of the internet, where we're going to talk about all the things that I'm making. There will be knitting. There will 1,000% be spinning. There, slight chance of weaving, depending on if my rigid heddle and I are friends that week. And there will definitely be sewing. And we're just going to talk about all the things that are bringing me joy and all the things that I'm making. And I'm hoping that by me sharing what I'm making and all the things that are inspiring me, that I inspire you to do the same. And let's just be a group of makers that inspire other makers and do the thing. Yeah. So I figured for episode 1, we'll eventually get to like a bit of a structure. I don't know if I should be committing to weekly podcast episodes because this is episode 1. Maybe we'll say fortnightly. I could commit to bi-weekly because that'll give me enough time to make something so I actually have something to share with you. And also give me a little bit of time to like decompress from the anxiety of sitting in front of a camera and talking to you. But this is going to be rad. I have all the faith in the world that this is going to be rad and that this is going to inspire lots of people. So I will tell you, let's chill. I'm going to settle in because I've done my introduction. I practiced that introduction probably like 10 times. And then once I sat down to do it, it came out completely differently and like, c'est la vie, right? But we're going to settle in and I'll tell you a little bit about my journey as a fiber. I'm not going to call myself a fiber artist. That feels way too pretentious for my neck of the woods. So we'll just say my journey as a fiber crafter because I can swallow that. So I've always been a maker. I come from a very long line of crafty women. My mother, baked cakes. She made all the decorations for every event that my family ever had, baby showers, weddings, parties, whatever. My mom was always making this stuff. And so my sister and I would help her because that's just, if my mother was busy, that's what we did. So I think I picked up my first knitting needle when I was like 14 or 15. And the first thing I made was like a garter stitch scarf. And they talk about finding the people in your life that are knit worthy. My sister, my baby sister, who's the absolute love of my life, is probably the most knit worthy person I've ever met because I've made her 2 terrible, 1 garter stitch, 1 terrible stockinette stitch. And I'm talking about like no patterns. I'm 32. So this would have been 15 to 17 years ago, if my math is correct. So I didn't know anything about patterns. I was using basic, Bernat or Red Heart. Oh my God. Basic Red Heart yarn from Michaels and like some plastic needles, and I was just knitting rows after rows after rows. I bound off. I didn't put like a tassel or anything. And I went, here, baby sister, here's a scarf. And I tell you, she still has them. And she was washing them in the washing machine and she was like repairing some of the stitches that had broken. And honestly, now that I tell the story, I'm like, I should knit my sister something nice because if there is anyone who's knit worthy in my life, it's that girl. And so I was knitting at home and then I went away to college. And when I went away to college, I didn't take any of my yarn with me. And I came back home and I didn't pick it up. And I got interested in other crafts. And we might talk about my other hobbies because I am a scrapbooker and I'm a memory keeper and I do a bunch of things. I do enjoy keeping busy and I enjoy making things with my hands. So that will probably come up at some point because how could it not? I feel like we're just going to be chatting about all the things that I'm making, and sometimes the things that I make live on paper. So fast forward to, I want to say fall 2019, and I was on Instagram like you do. I imagine that like, especially recently, like a high, maybe like 75% of the people who've discovered this hobby recently have discovered this hobby because of social media. And you can say what you want about it. It is. I'm not even going to talk about the madness, but it is. But I will say that it has introduced a lot of people, myself included, to like this wonderful hobby. And I'm sure there are tons of people who've been doing this forever who did not get introduced, or I like to say I was radicalized. We would talk about my evangelizing for the cause of wool some other time. But I think some people are introduced to this hobby through social media and through meeting other people and seeing what people are making. So I was like chilling on Instagram like you do, and I saw a tapestry weaving, and I was just like, oh, what is that rad thing? What is this thing people are doing? Oh, can I get in on this? How do I get in on this? How do I get in on this? And so I like went down the rabbit hole like you do, and I ended up in like no time at all. This is like classic Tashi energy. Tashi goes from like, I might be potentially interested in this thing to how do I get as much of it in my life as possible, as evidenced by the yarn wall. And so I ended up, this did take 6 months, maybe. But I ended up with like 3 tapestry looms of different sizes. I had macrame cord, I had roving, I had all the stuff. And I was weaving tapestry, and I was never very good. I'm not sure that's correct. I wasn't interested in selling my work. I would say that. I don't think I was ever technically good enough that I would say, hey, I made this thing. Do you want to give me money for this thing that I'm doing? But it brought me joy, and it was tactile. And I learned through tapestry that the things that really filled me up were the things that were tactile. It were the things that I could touch and hold on to and squish. And through the whole tapestry weaving experience, I discovered art yarn. And so for Christmas of 2019, trying to make sure I did this right. No, it must have been Christmas of 2020. It was 2 years ago. So it would be Christmas of 2020. What is time? Time is a weird soup. I have no idea what day it is anymore. I know my birthday was recently, so I know we're in November, but that's all I got. So Christmas of 2020, I decided to treat myself to a wheel. And again, don't be like me. Don't do it. I bought a wheel with like 0 research, 0 experience. I talked to one person. Shout out to my friend Kristen, who is like my fiber guru and who is probably the reason that I started spinning. She had bought a Spinolution bullfrog, and she was like, yeah, I bought a Spinolution bullfrog because it has a 16-ounce flyer and it'll make art yarn. And I was like, congratulations, sold. Tashi, you're getting a Spinolution bullfrog. And so I found a Spinolution dealer. I bought the wheel. The wheel arrived in pieces. I put it together and then sat in front of it. I had 0 ideas. 0. Like when I tell you I had never even picked up a drop spindle before I dropped a pretty penny on a brand new wheel was wild. Also, best decision of my life. Hands down, best decision of my life. So I decided I was going to teach myself to spin. And I like to tell people that I learn most things through YouTube University. It's just what I do. I go online. Not everyone learns this way, and I understand that I'm very lucky that I learned this way. But I go online. I watch a few YouTube videos. I practice the thing. I get frustrated at the thing. I practice the thing, and eventually the thing starts making sense. That doesn't seem to be the case with supported spindles. They are officially my nemesis, but that is neither here nor there. So I practiced the thing, and I bought my wheel with the intention of making art yarn. I'm talking about like beehives and coils and like thread plying and all the big squishy things that you see people do with like art bats. And I sat down at it and I was like, that's not what my hands want to do. Instantly, my hands just started drafting super fine. And when I say super fine, 2 years ago, super fine for me was like maybe 20 wraps per inch single, but it wasn't like the big, thick, chunky art yarns that you see people make on Instagram. And so I was like, all right, my hands don't want to make art yarn. What else can I do with this wheel? Because I didn't know at that time that people were spinning, large quantities of yarn. I was only following tapestry weavers. So I decided to just search spinning, hashtag spinning. I think the hashtag I was looking up was spinners of Instagram, and like mind blown, just full on mind blown. I was like, oh wow, people are making socks from, it was amazing. So I was like, okay, Wheel and I are going to go on timeout for a little bit until I figure out what I want to do. And so I started knitting, and the first thing I knit was a garment. I picked back up my needles, and I decided I was going to learn how to knit again, and I was going to learn how to knit in the round. I was going to learn how to knit properly. Now, for context, I'm left-handed, And since I taught myself how to knit, I knit from left to right. I didn't realize until much later on that that is not technically correct. But that's the way I knit, and I'm not going to learn a new way to knit. So I had to teach myself how to knit in the round, how to fix all of the issues with my knitting, because I was twisting all of my stitches because I didn't know better, because again, I taught myself to knit through YouTube videos, and I realized that I was doing everything backwards, but like, it was making fabric. It looks like knitted swatches. It was a whole ordeal. And I eventually went back to my wheel. I picked up some dyed roving, and all my spinners out there know the rabbit hole that is dyed comb top. Whew, the people who do this and do this, hats off to you guys, because the way indie dyers play with color and just it's bananas. And so I ended up with a sizable library of comb top, and the rest, they say, is history for a little bit. I learned how to spin fingering yarns. I learned how to spin 3-ply yarns, and I kept practicing, And somehow we ended up at the raw wool. And I will tell you exactly how we got there. So here's how we got there. It was Rhinebeck of 2021. And I went to Rhinebeck with the express intention of buying as much yarn as I could fit in my bags and as much yarn as my wallet would let me. And I also went with the intention of meeting Samantha Guerin, who, if you don't follow her on Instagram, is an absolute delight. And I went there because I had test knitted a sweater for her. I test knitted the Wild Joy pullover, and I will, if I can remember and figure out how to do this, I will put a picture of it here. But I had tested the Wild Joy pullover, and she was like, let's take pictures of our sweaters together. And I was just like, yeah, rad. That sounds great. And so I hung out with Sam for a decent chunk of Rhinebeck weekend. I bought, yarn. I bought some Jacob roving because I had Rhinebeck 2021 is when I had just decided that I wanted to get into non-dyed wool. I was literally like dipping my feet in little by little. And I was like, what would it be like to spin something that like just came off the sheep and has been handled like as little bit as possible? It would be delicious. And so I bought some Jacob wool. I was introduced to the Shave 'em to Save 'em program. I'm telling you, fleece people get radicalized very quickly. It's a cult. So I was introduced to the Shave 'em to Save 'em program. I got to meet some people who were raising sheep. And I was talking to Sam about this when I came home from Rhinebeck, and she was like, well, I am paraphrasing, dramatizing. I'm not sure what the word is. This is how I remember the conversation going. And I'm sure Sam remembers the conversation going a little bit differently. But pretty much, I was like, Sam, how does one get in the straight off the sheep game? And she was like, well, I will send you some. I bought this Romney fleece, and it is a delight, and I will send you some. And Sam and I had this like hour-long FaceTime call about processing raw wool and how to use it. And I remember buying wool combs and hand cards, and she sent me 6 ounces of this gorgeous Romney fleece. And it was literally life-changing. I'm not exaggerating. It was like a whole different corner of the universe had opened up for me the second I got my hands in it. If you've never smelled like clean raw wool, not from like sheep that were like rolling around in the dirt. I mean, listen, I love it all, but like not from like grotty sheep, but from like maybe a coated sheep and a sheep that was like living their best life, and you get your hands in it and there's nothing like it. It's magical. It's magical. And so I opened the bag, and it was this gorgeous silver Romney, 6-inch thick blocky locks. And I was like, oh yeah, oh yes, this is a thing. And it did not take very long until I had discovered the Raw Wool for Sale Facebook group, and I was talking to shepherds directly, and I was just like, hey, you took care of this animal for like a year and you did all these cool things, and I would like to give you money for the fleece that came off of this animal. And it would come in boxes, and then it kept coming in boxes, and then it kept coming in boxes. And then I realized I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And so I went looking on YouTube, and I've realized that there are very few. There's a lot of knitting podcasts, which I appreciate, and there are a few spinning podcasts, which I also appreciate, but I don't think there are very few podcasts where people are talking about working in it from like the ground up. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to start the show, is because I want to talk to people about raw wool and working with raw wool and all the things that you can do with it. And enough of my friends have enabled me and told me to do it. So here we are. Maybe, I think at my last count, I'm lying, I'm not, I don't know. I want to say I have anywhere from 15 to 20 raw fleeces in my apartment. They're not all raw. Some of them are scoured. Some of them are in various stages of processing. But I have anywhere from 15 to 20 fleeces from different breeds. I've learned what makes my heart sing. I have tried a few things that I was just like, has its purpose? Maybe not for me. But there's something about it, about getting into the nitty gritty, about talking to people who are into the same thing you're into. So anyways, here we are. It was a very long introduction to why I'm here and what you can hopefully find if you hang out with me. So we're going to do the podcast thing. We're going to have a structure. Maybe there'll be a few episodes where it might be topic based and less structure. A few people have asked to see my fleece stash, and I think those people just want to out me. I'm going to show you. I will. You ask for it. At some point you will get it. But it will take me a very long time because it is literally tucked into a million random corners of my apartment because I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, and there's wool spilling out of my ears. But we will start from the beginning. I am wearing the Field Day jacket by Ozetta. I test knitted this for Haley, and I knitted this out of, look at that. It's so scrumptious. Look at that halo. It's beautiful. I knitted this out of Briggs & Little worsted yarn and a strand of mohair. I want to say it was knitted for olive mohair, but I'm not sure. But I will do the podcasty thing, and I will link in the description box my Ravelry page so you can see all the things about this. It is just a drop shoulder V-neck cardigan. It's like a super squishy layer. I wear it a lot this time of year because I can just throw it on over a t-shirt. I'm wearing a Mitchell and Woolco. It says flock. Yeah, it's what I like punny sheep shirts. And I figured we'll talk about what I'm wearing. If I'm wearing anything interesting, I might eventually start wearing the clothes that my winter sewing has been very sad, but that's going to be changing. So eventually I'll be wearing things that I've sewn myself. We'll see what happens. And from there, we'll go to works in progress, finished objects, acquisitions. And in there, we will talk about wool. So let's get started. So works in progress. I have a little notebook. I obsessed with stationery. So I have a knit Archer and Olive notebook cover, and in here I have an Archer and Olive notebook, and I did take notes so I could hopefully stay on task, but also my mind moves not in linear pathways, so we might stay on task, we might get derailed, I might tell you stories that don't matter. I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but you're here and welcome, and I think it's gonna be rad, and I hope you stick around. So works in progress. We will do knitted works in progress first, and then we'll talk about spinning works in progress. So the first work in progress I'm going to show you is one that I really, really like. So here it is. It is not very far along, but oh yeah, that's picking up really nicely. So this, I finally cast on the Pressed Flowers cardigan by Amy Christophers. She released this 2 or 3 weeks ago. Probably longer. And I remember seeing it and going, yes. And then I remember going, oh, you know what would be rad if I spun the contrast color for it. So I did. I spun the contrast color for it. I spun up, it's Hello Yarn Thorn Apple on Corriedale, and I had 8 ounces of it, and I spun it to like it is not quite sport weight. It's pretty fingering. I got about 900 yards out of the 8 ounces, so it's pretty close to it's fingering. And I filled it, I washed it, finished it, and it was scrumdiddlyumptious. And then I actually knit a swatch. I am a swatcher. I've learned my lesson. I've had to frog 3 garments because when I first started knitting, I didn't think swatching was necessary. I thought swatching was a suggestion, and suggestions are for the birds. But it turns out that swatching's not a suggestion. It's actually really important. And the people who don't swatch are amazing, and that couldn't be me. So I'm going to find my swatch and I'll show it to you. So here is my swatch. I had taken a little bit of the I did spin a sample because I wanted to see, like, I wanted to check things like grist and all the things that they talk to you about so you could be a good technical spinner. So I wanted to check grist, and I also wanted to see if I liked the colors together. The main color is Magpie Fibers Nest Sport, which is also Corriedale, and it's in the Castaway color. And I figured I would do a Corriedale main color with the Corriedale contrast color. And it's so... I love it. I want to eat it. So that's what I'm doing. So I cast it on, and part of the reason why it took me so long, I finished this yarn at least 2 weeks ago, and part of the reason why it took me so long to cast it on is the first instruction was cast on 315 stitches on US 3 needles, and I was like, the devil is a liar. Who has time? And so I just kept putting it off because the idea of casting on 3 bottom up garments are from the 9th circle of hell, and I really want this cardigan, which is the only reason I'm doing it. But casting on 315 stitches and then knitting 2 inches of ribbing on US 3 needles, which is pretty much like knitting on toothpicks, was literally, it took me 3 nights just to get through the ribbing because I kept getting so frustrated with how slow it was going. And then once I got through the ribbing, it's potato chip knitting. Like I've been late for work 2 days this week because I was like, just one more row. One more row? One more row, and then I was late to work. So I can't let this pattern make me late to work anymore. I'm a nurse for perspective, so I shouldn't be late to work because I'm home knitting. But also, if you were knitting something like this, you'd be late to work too. So that's my first work in progress, and it's the one that's going well. Now we will talk about the one that's in timeout. This sweater makes me so happy and so sad at the same time. This is I'm sure everyone knows what this is by now, but this is the Andrea Mowry Metamorphic sweater, and so much joy, so much rage. I also spun the contrast color for this. So this was a combo spin of 2 colors of Targhee from Three Waters Farm. And I'm using Harrisville Nightshades in I think it's Last Call. I'm pretty sure it's Last Call. It's what the blue is. So this is the little bit that I have left. I have 2 more balls of it. And then this is the little bit of this is a terrible terrible yarn ball, but this is what's left of the current ball that I have. And so I spun the contrast color, I did the swatching, I did everything else. And look at you guys, it is unfair how beautiful this is. I'm so happy with this. And so I flew through the body. There was lots of D&D. I play D&D. Are you surprised? Probably not. But there was lots of D&D. I flew through the body. I got to the ribbing, and then I have done tubular bind-offs before, no problem. This was a 2x2 rib, and I don't know if I just screwed up the instructions, if me going from left to right messed something up, but the bind-off is not stretchy. Like, do you see how stretchy the rib is? And then the bind-off, not stretchy at all. And I did my bind off, went to put it on my body, and because the bind off isn't stretchy, broke it. Like, it's broken in like 3 places. So I have to rip out, like, it's really broken. It's really broken. So I now have to rip out my bind off. And I don't know how to pick up stitches and ribbing. I'm going to have to watch. I'm going to have to go to YouTube University to figure it out. I'm going to have to watch a few videos to figure out how to pick up stitches and ribbing, and then rip out my bind off. And then I'm just going to do my tubular bind off the way I know how to, because I know how to do a stretchy bind off. And I tried using the instructions in the pattern. And I'm sure it's not Andrea. I'm sure it's my error. But so much joy. So much rage. So it's in timeout because the idea of having to go through and pick up probably 300 stitches of ribbing, and then, I could pick it up close to the bind off. I just have to figure out how, and then bind it off again. And then I could do the sleeves. This was supposed to be my birthday sweater, which is the other reason that I'm really frustrated, because I was working really hard on this for most of November. And I was right. It might not have been done on my birthday, but I would have been done with maybe 2 or 3 days after if the bind off thing didn't happen. And then when the bind off thing happened, then I was just like, well, now I'm not finishing this anytime soon. And so my birthday sweater is in Timeout. And it's in Timeout. I'm going to finish it because I really love it. Like, I really love it. I put a lot of work into spinning this. I put a lot of work into knitting it. It's just these colors. I call this yarn my mermaid fantasy yarn when I'd spun it. And I definitely think it gives me mermaid fantasy vibes. And then holding it against the dark blue for contrast, I think it's really pretty. It's just joy, rage. It's an emotional roller coaster. That's what we're on right now. We're on an emotional roller coaster and I want to get off. So since I want to get off the emotional roller coaster, I am. And so that's going to stay in Timeout. I have some time off of work between Christmas and New Year's. And I think that's probably going to be the next time I pick it up because I'm going to need emotional space to get through it. So that's what we're going to do. So that's it for my knitting works in progress. We're going to talk about some spinning works in progress. And these are actually kind of exciting. Note to self, next podcast, put all of the hair up in the bun because this weird side bang thing, not doing me any favors. But my first work in progress comes with a little bit of a story. So I was talking to Melissa, and Melissa is at Melly Knits. And if you are interested in spinning at all, you should be following her. She's an amazing human. She's super knowledgeable and she's one of the kindest people I've ever met. She's one of those people who like believe that like whatever she has to offer, she has to offer. She doesn't like... She's genuinely amazing, and if you aren't following her and you're at all interested in wool, you should be. So there we go. So I was talking to her about Gotland because I had a Gotland lamb's fleece and I was not enjoying spinning it. So here is some of the Gotland. I'm just going to throw this on the ground. Here's some of the Gotland carded up because most of it's carded already and I couldn't find any of it in the lock form. So here's what it looks like carded up, and it's very airy. It's very squishy. It has good depth of color. Like it's a dark gray. But you can see just from holding it, because Gotland doesn't have any crimp, my bats were not holding together well. And so because they weren't holding together well, when I was spinning it, it was lots of you see, it just comes right out. It was lots of flyaways and I wasn't enjoying spinning it. I was really fighting with the Gotland to spin it. And then on top of that, I didn't know what to do with it. I think it would make a brilliant shawl yarn, but I'm not a shawl knitter. And so I was talking to Melissa about what to do with the Gotland, because like even my bats, like you can see, like even my bats weren't holding together well because there was no crimp to it. So as soon as I pulled it off the drum carder, there was just like fluff everywhere. It was like fluff all over. It was in my mouth. It was in my eyeballs. And I was just like, what? People love Gotland. Like, what am I doing wrong here? And she was like, no, you're not doing anything wrong here. Like, manage your expectations and make the wool work for you. And that's what I had to remember, is that like wool's a medium and it's malleable. It has memory and it's super forgiving. And so I should make it work for me. So what we decided to do is we decided to design a sweater blend. So I took the Gotland, and so she was asking me, she was like, what are the things about the Gotland that's stressing you out? And I was like, well, it has no crimp. And it's not grabby. It's super, because it's a lamb's fleece, it's super soft and it has no give. And so it was just flying out of my hands. And she was like, so what can we do to add crimp and add give? And I was like, we blend. So I went through my fleece library and I started pulling things that I thought would fix the things in the Gotland that was not bringing me joy. So I was like, what could I find that's grabby? And I ended up with this Parendale. And Parendale is a medium wool. Here it is. It's a medium wool. It has like a fairly long staple. I think one of the parents in Parendale is Romney. I'm pretty sure Parendale's a Romney cross. It reminds me a lot of Romney, but it has like a good staple length and it's grabby. Like when you pull it, it's medium. So it's kind of toothy and it has that, it would balance out the softness of the Gotland. And then I pulled this, and this is shorter. It's fine, but it's on the medium end of fine. And it is a Polypay Rambouillet cross. So it's much shorter stapled in comparison to the Parendale, You can see it's much shorter stapled, but the Perendale kind of has a wave, which you can kind of see. The Perendale has a wave, and the Polypay Rambouillet has crimp. And so the Perendale gave me the grippiness, and the Rambouillet gave me some crimp. And so I pulled out those two things, and then to give me a little bit of color, I pulled out some dyed top, and this is BFL, dyed by Three Waters Farm. It's the colorway Shadows and Conifers. And for my first foray into designing my own sweater blend, I decided to do a tonal dyed top because I didn't want to have to worry about the colors mixing and making like a weird muddy thing. So I went with a tonal because it would be blue. And so I carded them all together, and I have a little bat. So here is I've made like 3 of these by now. But here is one of my bats. It is this perfect moody blue. It's like a moody blue green. It reminds me a lot of what I think like the sea foam at like a storm looks like. And it's coming up pretty true to color on camera, but it's just this perfect moody blue green because the dark gray of the Gotland darkens that blue. And then you get, I blended this 5 times on my drum carder, each bat 5 times, because I wanted a homogeneous blend. I did not want itty bitty bits of texture. I wanted it to be a sweater yarn, so I wanted it to be a blend. And then I spun up 1 sample, and you guys, I have no words. My camera's focusing on me and not on the yarn. There it is. Now you can see it. So it is, you got so much joy. So it's super soft, super like it's next to skin, hold it against you like a baby and love it at the end of the night soft. It has perfect depth of color. I spun it and chain plied it to mimic a 3-ply yarn because 3-ply yarns are what I enjoy knitting with because they're round. And that way, if I decide I want to do a textured stitch, I don't really enjoy knitting lace, so I don't really reach for 2-plies. I almost always do a 3-ply if I'm doing a big sweater spin. It has like, I don't know if you'll see, but it has like a little bit of halo. Oh yeah, that's coming through. It has like the dreamiest little bit of halo from the Gotland in the yarn. And then it has like really good, I mean, I'll unskein it and skein it back. It has really good elasticity from the, like it bounces, it's springy. And that's from the Polypay in it, and the Polypay Rambouillet cross in it, and then the Perendale just made it easy and grippy to spin. So I'm going to knit a swatch of this. This yarn has already been finished. So I did a warm water soak with a little bit of wool wash. I've been using Tufts Woolens, the soap bar, for my soaks, and it's perfect. And so I started my big spin. I've been spinning this on my Spinolution Bullfrog. I have 2 wheels. I have 3 wheels. My dad bought me a 3rd spinning wheel for my birthday, which my second wheel is used and it's new to me. But I've been spinning this on my Spinolution Bullfrog. This is an 8-ounce bobbin, and I just started, so there's very little yarn on it. But I'm going to spin 3 8-ounce bobbins, which would give me 24 ounces of singles, and then 3-ply it. 24 ounces of singles, especially at like, with this grist, my grist for that yarn was 1,115 yards per pound, which means for every 16 ounces of fiber that I spin, provided I spin it exactly that same way, I will get 1,115 yards, give or take. So if I spin 24 ounces, which is 1.5 pounds, I should get about 1,600 yards, give or take. 1,600 yards of DK weight yarn is more than enough to knit a sweater for my body. I have a 45-inch bust, so I typically knit anywhere from the 48 to 51 finished bust sizes to give myself anywhere from like 3 to 6. I like 5 inches of positive ease on my body at my bust. That's my personal preference. So I will typically knit the 50-inch. If there's a 50-inch bust, that's where I go most times, unless it's something that's designed to have a little bit less ease. But for the most part, I go for a 50-inch bust, and 1,600 yards of yarn will give me a 50-inch bust most of the time. So this is a very new spin, But I mean, that depth of color, and I think it's going to look really good on me. I'm really happy with that. So it's going to give me this perfect teal yarn. Here is my like spinner's control card. Oh, no, my light is eating it, so you're not going to see my spinner's control card, but here is my spinner's control card. It has my singles, my 2-ply, and my ply back, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjusting with my lighting for this, because if I want to show you white things, it is completely disappearing. So episode 1, you guys, we're going to make this up as we go. But here's my spinner's control card. So I like to make one of these whenever I start a spin. I learned this from Rachel Smith at Woolen Spinning. She is like my spinning guru. And if you're interested in spinning and you're not following Rachel, correct yourself. Go do that immediately. Yeah, so I do a singles, a 2-ply ply back, and a 3-ply ply back. And then as I'm spinning, I double check it against my ply back cards to make sure that the yarn that I'm spinning is uniform. Because if you're spinning 24 ounces, that's a big project. Big project. So that's my first spinning work in progress. My second spinning work in progress is also raw fleece related. Well, fleece that I process myself. Are you noticing a trend here? No? Yes. This is a bobbin of CVM. This is also a bobbin of CVM. I have 2 finished bobbins of CVM lamb's wool. And this I'm spinning on my new to me spinning wheel. And you can tell that the spinning wheel is secondhand because these bobbins have this fun patina. And these bobbins, not yet, because these are new bobbins. Because when I got my wheel, it came with 3 bobbins. And jokes on anyone if they think that 3 bobbins is enough for me. So I immediately went and bought 6 more. So now I have 9 bobbins for that wheel. These are 4-ounce bobbins. And it's my first time ever spinning on a wheel with 4-ounce bobbins. Because my first wheel was my Bullfrog, which just for perspective. And I was like, these are so small. Like, is this the default for people? These are so small. But yeah, I'm adjusting. The Lendrum double treadle is that's all I got. That's all I got. It's perfect. It is a perfect wheel. I think because these bobbins are so small, long draw is a dream on it. I'm not fighting it. I super low tension. I'm spinning these at a ratio of 15:1 on my Lendrum DT. Here is my spinner's control card, which you can't see at all. But here's my spinner's control card because I am a good spinner. My friend Brenna likes to joke that I am a lawful good spinner, and she's more of a chaotic neutral spinner, but to each their own. But I like having a set of rules, especially for big spins. The last thing you want is to spin 20 ounces of yarn and then your singles are all over the place, and then you get like, you try to do a big project and you don't have. That's not true. That may not be the last thing you want. It's the last thing I want. And we all have our own wants and needs and desires when it comes to this craft. And there is room for everybody in it. So I am not the spinner's police. Nope. I am a chaos gremlin in real life. So I will be the last person that's policing anybody. I'm not the spinner's police, but I personally, I feel like if I'm going to do a big fleece project, and the smallest fleece project I've undertaken is a pound. So if I'm going to spin a pound of singles, I want at the end of the day to have a uniform yarn that I could do something with. So I spin with a spinner's control card, but do what works for you. You're your own boss. So here's 8 ounces. I have 16, 14, 12. I think I have 12 more ounces to go. I know I have more than a pound. More than a pound of fiber. I bought half a lamb's fleece, and most of the time you'll see that I buy half a fleece, unless it's like a 2-pound fleece, then I'll buy the whole thing. But for the most part, I buy half a fleece because there's only so much of my attention to go around, and I'd rather do, smaller 1-pound projects than do like a big 6-pound project and then be spinning the same fleece forever when I could be spinning something else that some other lovely sheep grew for me. So I like half fleeces. But to spin that little lamb's fleece, I'm spinning them in rolags. So what I did was I carded them into bats, and then I like rolled them off into little rolags. And the reason I'm spinning these in rolags is this lamb's fleece is super short stapled. And that's not a CVM thing. I've had CVMs that are much longer, but this, for some reason, this lamb, like, that's the staple. That's it. That's the staple. It is super short stapled, and I was having a lot of trouble spinning it from a bat and spinning it evenly. And so I just rolled them up into Rolags, and I'm spinning them that way, and they are much more manageable from Rolags than they ever were from a bat. And so I'm just going to continue spinning them from Rolags. So I have a basket full of Rolags in here, and this is what I do. I just keep my current spinning project in this basket, and then I lug my wheel along with it. And then when the basket is empty, this is just a cute little rope basket from Target. Oh, thumbnail. So this is just a cute little rope basket from Target, and I keep my current spin project in this. And then when the basket's empty, I fill it back up. So those are my two works in progress, spinning wise. I think I know what fleeces I'm going to work on next when I'm finished with these two, but those are my projects for now. And now we will talk about finished objects, and I only have one. So this is my finished object. And if you follow me on Instagram, you will have already seen this, but this is Large Marge. Large Marge is a lovely ewe who is taken care of by Robin. There's so much yarn. Is taken care of by Robin. I need to fit one more right here, so I'm going to put it on my head. Who's taken care of by Robin at Nice Stock Farms. I bought half of Marge's 2021 shearing, and it over the course of, well, you know, it went in timeout for 4 months. So I don't want to say over the course of like 6 months because it went in timeout for 4 months. In terms of real work time, it took me 2 months to process this fleece. I washed it all up, carded them into big juicy bats, and I'll insert some pictures because I didn't do any recording of me working on Marge's fleece, but I'll insert some pictures so you can see like what she looked like before I washed her, and then as I carded her and as I spun her up, I'll put some pictures. We'll do a little slideshow. But Marge is a CVM, I'm going to get this wrong, CVM Border Leicester Rambouillet cross. Yes, that's what Marge is. And I took all these notes and didn't write down what this is. But yes, she's a CVM Border Leicester Rambouillet cross. Robin raises a lot. She raises purebred Cotswolds, but she also raises lots and lots of crosses. And her crosses are really interesting because they tend to be on the medium end of the wool spectrum, and medium wools are my favorite. I personally do not enjoy spinning fine wools. Like, I know that there are people who lose their minds over like a super fine merino, but like give me like a 25, 27 micron, like medium wool, and that's where I'm happy. Yeah, you guys, I don't think this is full on fiber porn. Like, this should be illegal. What we're doing right now should be criminal. But yeah, here's Marge. So I took notes. So I spun the singles 12-1 clockwise, and then plied also 12-1 counterclockwise, and my finished yarn has 14 wraps per inch. 14 wraps per inch is like right at the heavy DK. I would say heavy DK. Has a 4.5 twist per inch and has a twist angle of 45 degrees. Now 45 degrees is a little steep for me, for what I like for a knitter's yarn. It is not overspun, but it is just shy of overspun. And what I should have done is when I went to ply Marge is I should have dropped, I can't, when I unwrap one of these skeins, I literally just sit here and I squish them. What I should have done when I went to ply Marge is I should have dropped a whirl. Normally when I spin at a high whirl and then I ply down a ratio, and I did not do this, and I wish I had. So it's not overspun. It's still a good knitter's yarn, but I just wish my twist angle was more like a 35 degrees instead of 45. 45 is a really good weaving yarn, and you can still knit with like a 45-degree yarn. And I knit a swatch of this and it's perfectly soft and it's next to skin, but I think it would have had a little bit more room to bloom in the washing if it didn't have such a steep twist angle. So that's just something that I'm learning, but I figured that out after I washed all of it and finished it, and I wasn't going to unskein it and run it through my wheel again because it's not unusable. If it was unusable, I would have, because this is a big project. But it's not unusable, and the swatch that I knit was gorgeous. I learned that I should remember to take down. I was just so excited to spin this that I was just, as soon as I finished the singles, I let it rest for a day. I put the new bobbin on the wheel and forgot to drop my ratio, and I just started plying. So I spun this on my Spinolution Bullfrog. Both plies and singles were spun, just so you could appreciate it, were spun at 12 to 1, and I ended up with 1,350 yards, 1,350, which I already have a project in mind for this. And I think the next time we chat, I will have at least the swatch of what I have in mind for March, and then we could talk about what I'm doing with it. But it's gorgeous sweater yarn. It has really good color. This would make a good outerwear yarn, but it would also make a good, like, it's next to skin. Like, I'm not sensitive to wool. I will say that. Like, I know some people are. I'm not sensitive to wool, but I have no prickle. Like, I could just rub this. I could wear this as a hat. I could wear this as a cowl. I'm going to wear it as a sweater. No prickle. She's beautiful. So that is my one finished object that we're going to be talking about. And I hope you enjoyed the pictures of me working through Marge's fleece because she was gorgeous. And I hope whoever got her 2022 sharing is super happy. I did get another fleece from Robin at Nice Doc because I think Robin's one of my favorite growers. And I'm just going to work my way through her flock because that's what you do. So now we go on to acquisitions, and then we say goodbye for now, and I do this again soon? ? So acquisitions. So I have a few spinning plans. I have zero business buying more fiber, but Beth at Spin Delicious is one of my favorite dyers. I have a few that I will like go hard for, and Beth is one of my favorite dyers, and she decided to do custom orders. So if you're interested in Beth's work, before this, Joshua used to laugh, but before this, she used to only do like limited dye drops on Fridays, and like I used to go hard to make sure that I got, and there was one colorway that I wanted, and it took me a month to get it because every time she dyed it, I was just too late. So now she's doing custom orders. So I placed an order for 3 colorways of comb top, and they're all on Corriedale. So this one is called Moral, like the mushroom, like mushrooms, the mushroom. Zero ideas. This one is called Pale September. So this one's called Pale September, and then this one is called Cowboy Boots. There we go. And I got them all on Corriedale, and I got them. I felt like they were vaguely analogous shades, and I'm going to get them to make sweater blends. A lot of the comb top I have in my stash, and I'm going to be destashing really, really soon because I was buying a lot of comb top when I first started spinning, and I have a lot of fibers that I don't enjoy spinning and a lot of colorways that I don't like. So I'm going to be destashing soon, but I've learned that I don't like colors that have high contrast. I like colors that are like muted and muddied and have like dark grungy colors and are analogous. So I got 3 colorways that would be analogous for blending into sweater bats, kind of like what I did with that blue Gotland. And so I'm going to be designing some more sweater spins. And I don't know if I'll ever knit all the sweater yarn, but I'll have it. And that's good enough, right? And my last acquisition, well, last 2 acquisitions are raw wool based. I should probably turn the camera. I think I'll do that. I will turn the camera down so you can kind of see into these boxes. But I have 2 fleeces that I've added to my stash, which again, I have zero business. So the fleece that won the Supreme Fleece at Rhinebeck was a merino. And I got lucky enough to get a merino from her flock. And remember how I was just doing all that mess talking about how I don't like fine wool? I could not resist. We're going to have a moment of silence and just appreciate. So anyways, I ended up with half a merino. I think my favorite part of this particular fleece is it's 5 pounds, and 5 pounds is half. 5 pounds is half, which blew my mind because 1, that 5 pounds is half a fleece, and 2, that people buy whole 10-pound fleeces. Like, I mean, I guess if you're buying it and sending it to the mill, or you're buying it and like sharing it, or you're buying it for your job, sure, but this is a hobby, and so no 10-pound fleeces for me. So that's half. And then my other recent acquisition is this beautiful Icelandic lamb from a sheep called Stella Luna. I will fix my lights next time because, yeah, the whites on here are really washed out. But from a little sheep called Stella Luna, this is a lamb. This is her first shearing, and it's my first Icelandic. I've never worked with Icelandic. I mentioned to this particular shepherd that I was interested in Icelandic, and Icelandic being dual coated and all the things you hear about it being hard to work with. And so she recommended a lamb's fleece for me, which I thought was an excellent idea. And Stella Luna is 2-colored. So she has white and she has black in her fleece. She's, according to the shepherd, I don't take my fleeces out the box until I'm ready to work with them because they fit really well in these boxes and I don't have the space to store them, so I keep them in the boxes. Look at this staple. This is bananas. That is a staple because Icelandic are double coated. They have tog and thel, so they have an undercoat and a thicker overcoat, top coat. 2 coats, one's thick and one's thin. And she's downy soft. And so she was like, they said she was 75% white, 25% black. And you know what would be rad is to separate the colors and then maybe do a colorwork sweater out of just one fleece. So that is probably what I'm going to do with Stella Luna's fleece. But I have decided to work through my fleece stash chronologically. To make sure that the things that I got early on don't just like linger. I mean, it's not like it's gonna go bad. I mean, I guess lanolin could I haven't had them long enough for them to go bad is the short version. I've amassed a ridiculous fleece library in a year. Don't judge me. This is a judge-free zone. But I've amassed a ridiculous fleece library in a year. So they're not going bad. They can hang out for a little bit, but I've decided I'm gonna work chronologically. So it's gonna be some time till I get to this merino, into that Icelandic lamb. And what I've been doing is I've been washing and storing things in vacuum seal bags so that when I'm ready to process, I could just pull it out of my bag and get to work. But you guys, that's episode 1 of Stitches in Starlight. Welcome. I hope you enjoy the podcast. I hope you come back. I'm sorry I took an hour of your time. I don't know if they'll get any shorter. Next time, bring a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of wine or a snack or something. Bring a project. I hope this becomes a space where you can stop and work on something that brings you joy while I talk about all the things that I'm working on. But yeah. Episode 1 in the bag. So do the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, tell me what you thought. I hope you liked it. If there's something in particular you want to see from me, let me know, and we'll do that. So, I'm Tashi, and next time we will do the thing. I'll figure out a sign off, but I'm Tashi, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.